Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Robert to get started with the T-SQL course. In this lecture we're just briefly going to talk about what we have covered so far in this course and what we will be covering in the upcoming lectures, where we're going to talk some more about intermediate concepts and write some more intermediate queries. So just sort of want to just summarize what we've learned in this, let's call it first section, the basic section, before we enter the section 2, let's say, for more intermediate concepts. So we have looked at how we can download and install SQL Server, and also how we can download and install SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, the interface where we have been writing all of our SQL queries. We took a look at how to import the AdventureWorks database, the database that we mainly use for all of our queries. We've also taking a look at how to activate IntelliSense and some line numbers on your queries to make it easier to work with T-SQL. And then we have covered the sort of a blueprint of a SQL query, which always is to start with select. That's the most basic and most important sort of word to know, the select. And we've looked at how it can select specific columns from a table, and also how to select everything from a table using the select star. We've also looked at some basic filtering with the where and the or operators. And we've also covered how to do some more filtering with the in and not in. And I just want to highlight that in the upcoming lectures, when we talk about more intermediate concepts, we're going to look at some more advanced scenarios where to use in and not in operators, because when just using it for very basic stuff that we've done here, it's it's not, you don't sort of see the full potential of the in and not in operators, and for many people it's just like, this is just a more advanced way of writing a simple where clause. And although that is true for this scenario that we've been taking a look at now, it's not completely true when we work with more advanced queries that we will do in the upcoming lectures. And we've also looked at the like operators, how we can search for different patterns in strings in different columns, and also talked briefly about how we can use aliases and how to create our own custom columns. And working with aliases and custom columns we're gonna see that in more detail, and to sort of see the importance and the meaning of it now when we write more intermediate queries. Because if we don't know so much about joins and subqueries and stuff like that, and the case statement, which we will cover later, it can look quite unnecessary and useless to use aliases. But we're going to see, and so you're going to see the importance of it and the necessity of it. We've also taken a look at the null and understanding the null value, and that is also very important, which we saw when we worked with the different aggregations like count and average and stuff like that. We've also taken a look at the distinct function, how we can select the distinct values in a column. We've also taken a look at data types. So we've looked at how we can work with strings, different string functions like left, right, upper, lower, the substring, char index, and these functions. And also how to nest these functions, so to do many string functions in the same columns, to sort of use them in combination. We've also taken a look at some numeric values, how to work with numeric values such as int, float, decimal, and the numerics. And we've also gone through the date type functions, how to work with dates. And we've covered some date functions like getDate, dateAdd, and stuff, dateDiff, and some more date functions. And then we've looked at how we can sort our query results with order by class. And finally, we've looked at the most commonly used aggregate functions, which are mostly used in combination with the group by class. And these are the count, min, max, sum, and the average. And we've also, briefly just touched on some more of the functions that T-SQL provides us with. And so that is the basic section, where we cover the basics. And if we move on to what we will be covering in this section, the more intermediate section, we're going to start off with looking at the case statement. And then we're going to jump into the having clause. And then we're going to spend quite a lot of time working with joins. So what are joins? Why do we need to use joins? And then we're going to take a look at inner joins, left joins, right joins, full join, and the self joins. And also go over some scenarios to determine when to use which join and what pitfalls we can fall into if we don't use the correct join, the correct scenario. So sort of see like, okay, if we use an inner join and we only join on one column, but then we find out that we need to use more than one column in a join criteria, we will end up with duplicates, and then the totals will not add up together. It will be incorrect. Or if we use an inner join and then we're missing data from the lookup table that we are joining to, then we will also miss some data, and so then we should use a left join instead. And so we're going to go through a lot of examples, and I really recommend you to spend a lot of time to really make sure that you really understand joining tables, because you're gonna have a hard time to continue on your SQL journey. And then if you land a database developer job or something like that, you're sort of gonna be forced to fully understand everything about joins, because you will not get far in your SQL career if you don't fully understand joins. And then we're going to move on and we're going to talk, quickly going to show you the union and the union all, how we sort of combine different query results and then just to put them on top of each other like that with the union and union all. And also we're going to take a look at views to understand what views are, why we need views, how to create views, and then sort of see the differences between querying directly from the table and querying the views. We're also just very briefly going to touch on the user-defined functions. As I mentioned in the agenda, it's not something that is really used a lot. But I have written a couple of user-defined functions which I use from time to time, but it's not like a major topic. But it's still important and useful to understand and sort of know that they are there and what it is, if in case you would need it for your project or for yourself. And then, same as the joining tables chapter, we're going to spend quite a lot of time working with stored procedures, where we will go through the syntax, why use stored procedures, what they are, and why we should even bother with them. We're going to take a look at how to create stored procedures, how to modify them and execute them, and then we're going to end that section with stored procedures by looking at stored procedure parameters and how to execute and create stored procedures with different parameters. And I'm going to end this section by giving some tips and tricks on how we can do certain stuff that I've picked up over my years as a SQL developer. And that can include like how to easily find out if you can use an inner join or not, or if you need to use a left join. Different type of sort of tips on how I build up my queries and what to think about. Just some neat and good tricks that you can apply and use for yourselves in your day-to-day jobs. And so in the next lecture, we're going to look at the case statement. So I will see you guys then.